to the workshop. I'm so glad that you guys are here, and this workshop is about storytelling and social justice, and we're so excited and looking forward to our time together with all of you. I am going to pass the mic to one of the lovely artists, Joshua, to present.
Morning, how you guys doing today? So I'm Josh, he, him, his. I'm 20 years old. I'm a third year student at Santa Barbara, and also I'm a first year member of Getty Unshuttered. And in Getty Unshuttered, especially for the first year, they gathered undeserved youth from areas around Los Angeles and brought us in and taught us the basics of photography, regardless of whether or not we've been introduced to it before or not. And there I actually fell in love with photography. It was really my first experience actually taking photos of people, changing lighting, and all that type of stuff. And the reason I really love it is because it's the way that you could tell a story without actually really having to say anything or really put yourself out there, because you're taking photos of other people, other things. And also I've been really inspired by the lack of representation for Black people within the current media. So I'd like to get into my photos, and I'll start with the first one all the way to the left. So my focus is going to be colors right now. So with that photo, I decided to go with red and blue. And I chose those colors really just because of the emotion that it brings to the photo. Because since they're contrasting colors, it kind of gives you like a contrast of emotions. Like, is it a serious photo because of the red? Or is it kind of like a somber photo because of the blue? And I really just love that because it just gives the photo a dramatic flair. It makes you really just think like, okay, what's going on here? And I chose red specifically just because of how well it fit their skin tone. And it's especially because it made the little stickers right there on their face. I don't know if you can see them. It's like 3 little stars. It made them super obvious, and I just like how they popped out. And then with the blue, I chose that as the contrast because contrast is just like a awesome tool. I just love using it because it just brings like a more serious tone to all your photos. Okay, and the second one, which is going to be the top one right here, I really just love for you guys to like sit back and just look at it for a second and just tell me what do you notice from it.
The lighting is a bit softer than in the first photo, so the red is like much more, it's like blended in with the like fabric that they're like laying on.
Yeah, I actually really love that photo just because what you mentioned, because the lighting is kind of soft. And I just like using soft and hard lighting because it just like changes the whole mood of the photo. Like, who mentioned it? Yeah, like Lee mentioned in the chat, it feels like a more intimate photo because when you have softer lighting, it just makes everything in the photo kind of soft and you appear like you're in that moment. It makes us appear. Has anybody actually? Yeah, has anybody in here like seen Moonlight, for example? Because when you see that movie, you notice like with the colors in it, it has like a strong contrast in certain moments, but in like personal moments when it's just what was his name? Chiron, I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't watched it in a second. But yeah, when the main character is in like intimate moments or in like moments that are just really important for his development as a character, they just have softer lightings just to like bring out the softer side of him as a person. So I just like using that as a tool because it helps me do that. Okay. And also, another thing I like to point out is my use of props because of the pink beanbag right there. Because it also goes really well with the red, makes it kind of appear even softer because you kind of have the reflection of the pink from the lighting and everything is bouncing off of the beanbag right into their face. And it complements the red more and makes it even softer and makes the whole photo in general softer. And then for the third photo, the bottom one, I'd just like for you guys just to tell me what you notice about it. And also just, yeah, I'm also not sure what the tattoo says. They told me, but I kind of forgot. And also this is going to lead into a little try at home skill I want you guys to try out. So I want you to like find an object like a shirt, piece of fabric, or like a blanket or something that is like a color that you really like. and use it as a backdrop for either yourself or an object you want to take a picture of, and just take a picture. Well, actually, yeah, basically this is what I did. I just had this wrapped around my camera lens. And the reason I chose this fabric as my color is just because I love like blues and greens, you know?
Hi, everybody. How you guys doing? My name is Jeremy Davis. I'm currently a sophomore at USC, and I'm pursuing a Bachelor's of Art degree in the Rossi School of Art and Design. And today I'll be presenting a set of four photographs, these four photographs right here, from a series I did called the Kodak Color Cards. And in the series, like I addressed beauty standards in film and photography from when it first became popular, and I also touch on the racial implicit bias in these beauty standards. You guys gotta put that to the side. We'll be using that for the activity. But so to start, I'll give you guys a bit of a background into how I started photography. So I was informally introduced to photography through my father, and he would take like Polaroids and like just different photos at our family events, like weddings, birthdays, like anniversaries for my brother and I, to like look back on when we got older. But I didn't like formally start taking photography until my junior year of high school in 2018. And I took a beginning level photography class, like where we learned about the basics, so like lighting, like textures, like different shapes and stuff that you can take photos of. And then in 2019, my senior year of high school, I took a AP photography. And that was also when I was a part of Getty Unshuttered. And for me, I feel like Getty Unshuttered is where like my photography skills really took the next step. I also learned the power of photography through storytelling. And for me, I feel like storytelling through photography is so important because I feel like today in today's society, like mainstream media, really like mainstream media controls people's opinions, and they control the narrative, and they really like they make a difference in how people perceive like certain like social, cultural, and like political issues. And I feel like photography and like storytelling through photography allows people from marginalized communities to like recontrol the narrative and tell like stories through their lens. So now I'll go into the photos a little bit. Where I really wanted to use light and shadows as well as composition to kind of reset the standard of beauty and also like photograph my friends and family in a positive light. And the most interesting, like craziest fact that I found when I was doing research was that the company, Kodak was a company that made the color cards, and they actually didn't change the problem until 50 years later when like a furniture company was complaining about the difference in color between like the furniture and that their customer, that they're losing money because customers like were complaining about the color. So that was like something that I found interesting because that they like didn't care to humanize people of color, but they only cared about their bottom line. So going to the first photo, which is, I'll start with the photo of my mother, and it's on the top. So for all the photos, a technique that I like to use is the rule of thirds for composition. This is where you separate like a photo into three different halves. So on the left half of the left side of this photo, it's like from my mom's forehead to the left corner of the photo. And in this photo, like in the left third, you can see like the shadows and the texture of her afro. And then moving to the middle third, which is like from her forehead to like her nose area. This is where you like can see her eyes staring. Can annotate. I'm not sure how to annotate, so I try to talk through it the best I can. But in the middle half, you can see your eyes, and it's like staring right into the camera, so it's kind of capturing the viewer's gaze. And then and also you can see like the outline of her hand, which is like in the fist of like Black Power, Black Pride. And then the right third of the photo, you can see the outline of her face, and like the outline of her mouth. So for the activity, I'll give you guys 3 minutes. So what you do is you can use the saran wrap or the plastic wrap, whichever you have, and you can use color over it with whichever color Sharpie you use, and then you can like you use like a light source and shine a light through it, and you can take like a portrait, like a self-portrait, or it can be of an item that you have around your house that like represents you, and then like use the lighting to create like an interesting light.
Thank you, Jeremy. So hey again, my name's Regina. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. And I am a visual and written artist who is based in Southern California. I was born in Guadalajara, which is in Mexico, but I came to the US when I was about 3. So I grew up in LA, which really influenced a lot of my work. So I tried to focus a lot about just like all the different aspects of my community and my identity that kind of have shaped me in my lived experiences. So a lot of my artwork focuses on cultural background, my queer migrant identity, mental health, and just like the ever-changing landscape of LA. So I'm currently pursuing a degree in sociocultural anthropology from UC San Diego. But without further ado, I'll get into my work. So these are a couple of samples. 2 of these are from my project with the Getty, which I tried to address mental health within like young communities and of color, because I kind of noticed that there was a big disconnect between mental health accessibility and mental health as a general. Because in brown communities, specifically like Latinx communities, like mental health is kind of seen like one of those things that's just constantly swept under the rug, where it's not really taken seriously. And then, so there's like that cultural aspect where youth and people who do struggle with mental issues kind of tend to feel the need to suppress those darker aspects of themselves. And then there's the issue of accessibility, which is that in my community, it's very, very difficult to get access to a therapist, medication, or just any type of psychological treatment. So for my project with the Getty, what I did was I talked to a couple of my friends, I talked to my sibling, and we just kind of had this honest discussion about what mental health meant to them and their personal struggles or interactions with the mental health world in terms of like medical help. So the picture in the center with the mirror, she's my friend Giselle. So we just kind of talked about how this place where she would go to outside of the projects where she lived in was very special to her. So she would just kind of go out there and like stand there and kind of debrief with herself when she needed a little break from the stuff that was going on in her house. So we took some pictures there. And I asked her to hold the mirror and like look at herself. But another important thing that I want to talk about today is like the use of lines and layering in photography. So as you can see with her portrait, I kind of used her arm as like a line to like circle you back into her face so that her face is not at the forefront, but like her arm is. And it kind of leads your eye into her gaze. The other picture that I have from that particular project is of my sister. So both of these shots were not necessarily posed. I was just kind of talking to them, having them hold up an object or just kind of stand there. And I kind of just let the pictures unfold naturally. So the one with my sister, I think we were having like a family dinner or something, and everyone was talking and she was kind of like tapped out, but my parents were like, oh, come on, just like stay for like 5 more minutes. So I kind of just like picked up my camera and started like taking pictures of the interactions that were going on in the room, and I captured this one. So my mother is actually the person who's framing my sister, and it's that same kind of use of like layering someone in the background, layering themselves and kind of like adding depth to a photo so that it gives more of like a character, or it sets more of a scene. Some other works that I have, this is the bottom, and the one in the right corner is a photo that I took the last time I went to Mexico. This was a man who was just like selling these flowers that he was making out of like caña. So he was just like weaving them, and we had a conversation about who he was, and it was very nice. And again, I took this picture in conversation. He was kind of just molding it with his hands, and then I just asked him to hold, and it was a very nice conversation. And I think that's what photography means to me. It's like that ability to make connection and capture that connection with someone else, you know. I think with lens-based artists, I don't know if Josh and Jeremy will agree with me, but I think it's important just to like let people speak for themselves, and you're kind of just there to show that, or you come with an intent, but the reality is your subject is the one who's carrying that weight. You're just kind of there to capture it. And finally, another thing that I like to do with my photography, or like just with my artwork in general, is kind of incorporate my writing to it. Before I got into photography, I was very written based. So I would write a lot, and writing was always like a way for me to express myself. So when I added visual artwork to my craft, so what I started to do was kind of overlaying my writing into my photography, or kind of creating like mirrored images, in which one was the writing set and one was the visual. So that's the one I have right here. So this is a portrait of me and my mother when I was like a newborn. So I made like a collage out of it. I made this with PixArt, which is a phone app. And I wrote that poem during a time in which my mother was in the hospital. So it was a very difficult time, but I wanted to make sure that I honored her and like honored the way that I was feeling with her hospitalization. And yeah, so this is like one of my favorite works that I've ever done, just because it's very personal. And I think it's very important to be objective with your art, with your photography, with your writing, in any way that you choose to express yourself. Like just be honest to yourself, and just kind of let yourself like be your most authentic self, and kind of let your art guide the way that shows. But yeah, so that's a little bit about myself. Forward to the activity portion. So for the activity part, I want you all to either use the photo we took at the beginning of the session, in which you were talking about your mood. And if you want to use that photo, I'd like you to write a little poem or a little excerpt of how you're feeling, and kind of express yourself in words. And if that's a little bit out of your comfort zone, I would like you to take a self-portrait or a portrait of something that represents you, using like that layering technique. So like, don't put your object in the front of your image, kind of frame it with other objects in the space that you are in. So I will give you all about 4 minutes to do that, and then we can check in. I like seeing everyone's like photos and like writing just like kind of thrown in there. So thank you so much for sharing and being vulnerable with me.